Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It is sometimes alleged with regards to the plague prophecy of the Promised Messiah والسلام, that prophecy was not miraculous. And the reason was because the plague already existed in India before the prophecy was made. So how can it be foreseeing a future event? And another allegation in the same context is that the Promised Messiah والسلام, stated that the plague will remain amongst people until people don't accept him. And because the Ahmadiyya Muslim community today is still a minority community and the plague ended a long time ago, hence this prophecy too was not fulfilled. So let's address both of these allegations. The first being that the Promised Messiah والسلام, prophesied the plague when it already existed. And in an article posted online by an individual, the vision that has been cited, the very well-known vision of the Promised Messiah والسلام, where he sees angels planting the dark-coloured trees which symbolize the plague, that vision is from 1898. And because the plague existed before that, the allegation hence follows that the prophecy was made after the plague. Let's look at this historically. The first time the prophecy of the plague made by the Promised Messiah والسلام, was not in 1898. Rather, we can trace its origins as highlighted by the Promised Messiah والسلام, himself all the way back to 1883 in Barahin-e Ahmadiyya, which was one of the first books that were written by the Promised Messiah والسلام. This is the first time we find a mention of a prophecy of the plague. The Promised Messiah والسلام, himself has stated that the revelation وَلَا تُخَاطِبْنِي فِي الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا إِنَّهُمْ لَمُغْرَقُونَ points towards people being destroyed due to the plague. And this prophecy is in Barahin-e Ahmadiyya. In 1883 it was first published. So taking a prophecy in 1898 and stating that that was the first time the Promised Messiah والسلام, stated that the plague would happen, and not actually doing the proper historical research is simply irresponsible. So the first time we find a mention of this prophecy is in 1883. And this is something that has been stipulated by the Promised Messiah والسلام, himself. Now, furthermore, we find more prophecies in this regard. We find another prophecy in 1893, the very well-known prophecy, and the words are Isna'il fulka bi a'yunina wa wahyina, that create a boat before our eyes and according to our revelation. Of course, this historically meant to safeguard your community from the plague. And this was published in 1893. Now, another revelation is from 1893 again, in which the Promised Messiah والسلام, stated that he was told that when Lekram would pass away, and he would pass away according to the Promised Messiah والسلام's own prophecy, then soon after the Punjab, specifically the Punjab, would be hit by the plague. So we find these prophecies existing not from 1898, but nearly a decade, more than a decade before this. We also find that the Promised Messiah والسلام, did prophesy the plague before it happened. Now, historically speaking, the first case of the plague in India was detected in September 1896 by a man called Acacio Vegas, who was a medical practitioner that went on to treat the plague victims. 1896 is the first time the plague is detected in Mumbai in India. The first time the prophecy is made, as has already been explained, is 1883, more than a decade before. So historically, when we look at the context and we carry out the necessary research that you should be carrying out if you want to raise questions, is that the prophecy is made over a decade before the event actually happens. And yes, you may be able to say that the first time the plague appeared was actually in China, but out of the 12 million people that died because of the plague, 10 million of them were in India. But the entire point of the prophecy, of course, the Promised Messiah والسلام, prophesied it before it actually happened, but it's actually something more than this, which has been totally left out in the article. The whole point of this prophecy is that the plague will appear, but the Promised Messiah والسلام, and his community shall be protected. As Allah Ta'ala told the Promised Messiah والسلام, that Inni uhafizu kulla man fid-dar, that I shall protect all those people who are the members of your household, and that means that who are members of your community. This is the real majesty of the prophecy, that the plague appears, it kills millions of people. It's known as the third plague pandemic, which means it's the largest plague in 14 centuries of history. Yet, the community of the Promised Messiah ﷺ is protected from this. When you look at this in its entirety, this is when the real point and the real miracle of the prophecy becomes evident. So, firstly, we find that the Promised Messiah ﷺ prophesied the plague before it happened. But then we also find that he stated that when the plague comes, I and my entire community shall be safeguarded. So this is the miracle of the prophecy, and it should be looked at from this angle. It is not possible for a man to claim that he shall not fall victim to a disease and then claim that for his entire community of followers and claim that for his entire household, whilst he's living in a place in which people are dying left, right, center from the same disease. And at the same time, this same man says that to prove that this is a prophecy from Allah the Exalted, he shall not be inoculated. He shall not take the vaccination. How much more proof do you need that this prophecy was from Allah the Exalted? If you carry out the necessary historical research, if you actually read the books of the Promised Messiah ﷺ and not cherry pick quotes, you will come to understand how magnificent a prophecy this was.